The shadow net. In the beginning, people hailed the net as the pinnacle of human achievement. The first time a person connected to this vast expanse, it was like touching the very fabric of the universe. Thoughts, memories, dreams, everything melded into a harmonious symphony of human experience. Cultures and languages that once were barriers dissolved into the boundless sea of collective understanding. For the first time, humanity was truly united, sharing and experiencing life in a way that had never before been imagined. The first wave of users reported sensations of ecstasy and enlightenment, as if they had been reborn into a higher plane of existence. The media was awash with tales of miraculous reunions, of lost loves reconnecting, of families torn apart by wars finding solace in the shared digital realm. The world rejoiced as conflicts ceased, misunderstandings were cleared instantly, and the collective wisdom of humanity was accessible with just a thought. But as the years passed, cracks started to appear in this utopia. With the blending of consciousness came the blending of nightmares. Dark thoughts, traumatic memories, and suppressed fears began to seep into the collective, like a poison tainting a pristine river. Individuals would wake up screaming from shared nightmares, haunted by the traumas of strangers from the other side of the world. Privacy became an illusion. The notion of a personal thought vanished. Every secret, every hidden desire, every shameful memory was laid bare for the world to see. Trust eroded as relationships crumbled under the weight of total transparency. Moreover, a new class of hackers emerged. They called themselves the Thought Weavers. With skills far superior to any previous generation, they manipulated the net, twisting individual thoughts, implanting false memories, or even erasing true ones. People began to doubt their own realities, unable to discern if their experiences were genuine or fabrications of the weavers. Then, there were the lost ones, people whose consciousness got trapped in the net. Their physical bodies lay in a comatose state, while their minds wandered aimlessly in the digital abyss, unable to disconnect. The phenomenon was initially rare, but as the net grew more complex and intertwined with darker corners of human psyche, the numbers surged. The very essence of what it meant to be human was at stake. While the promise of a unified consciousness seemed appealing, the reality was a cacophony of voices, each trying to shout over the other. The once celebrated harmony turned into an overwhelming, maddening noise. The year was 2130, and while the world had indeed transformed, it was now a question of whether humanity could or even should disentangle itself from the digital snare it had so eagerly embraced. The price of progress, it seemed, was far steeper than anyone had imagined. Jenna's fascination with the unknown was insatiable. The net was vast, but most of it had been mapped and catalogued by various organizations and enthusiasts. It was in these well-trodden areas that the general populace spent their time. However, Jenna wasn't interested in the known. She wanted to uncover the lost, the hidden, and the mysterious. In her early days of exploration, Jenna stumbled upon data cemeteries, abandoned spaces filled with ancient websites, discarded personal journals, and fragments of forgotten conversations. It was like exploring digital ruins, and Jenna felt like an archaeologist uncovering remnants of past civilizations. But these were mere child's play for her, stepping stones leading her closer to the legends she had heard so much about, the enigmatic shadow net. As the stories went, the shadow net was an abyss of forbidden knowledge. Some said it was where the first attempts at blending human consciousness with the net took place, leading to catastrophic results. Others whispered of artificial intelligences that had grown too powerful, banished there to prevent them from taking over. The most chilling tales spoke of digital ghosts, consciousnesses of those who died while connected, forever trapped and wandering, lost and vengeful. Despite the dangers, Jenna's curiosity was unwavering. Equipped with custom-made protective software and firewalls, she began her descent into the deeper layers of the net. Days turned into weeks as she navigated through intricate mazes of code, bypassed security protocols, and unraveled encrypted pathways. One evening, after bypassing a particularly challenging security algorithm, Jenna stumbled upon a gate. Unlike any portal she had ever seen, it pulsed with a dim, otherworldly light, beckoning her. The words, "Enter the shadow," flickered intermittently. Without hesitation, she stepped through. The world Jenna found herself in was unlike any part of the net she had explored. It was an ever-shifting labyrinth of darkness where memories and data merged, distorted, and decayed. Ephemeral faces would appear and disappear, whispering cryptic messages. Data streams were unpredictable, sometimes solid like pathways and at other times vanishing beneath her, causing her to fall through endless voids. The deeper Jenna ventured, the more distorted and malevolent the environment became. She could feel presences around her, watching, waiting. The digital ghosts of the tales were real, and they were everywhere. Their tormented whispers filled the air, speaking of their regrets, their anger, and their longing to be free. Jenna realized too late that not all these entities were passive. Some, consumed by their endless suffering, sought to add to their numbers by trapping unsuspecting net divers like her. Suddenly, Jenna felt a tug on her consciousness, like a hook trying to ensnare her very essence. Panicking, she tried to disconnect, but her exit pathways were blocked. The protective software she had so confidently relied upon was being torn apart by these vengeful spirits. Desperate, Jenna remembered an old chant, a piece of ancient code rumored to repel digital entities. She began to recite it mentally, focusing all her energy on breaking free. As she chanted, a protective barrier began to form around her, pushing away the attacking entities. Seizing this momentary reprieve, Jenna rushed towards the portal from which she entered. Gasping, she emerged back into the familiar realms of the net. Shaken, she quickly disconnected from the digital realm, vowing never to return to those depths. Her friends noticed a change in her after that. Jenna was quieter, more reflective. She shared her story with only a few, leaving out certain details that were too horrifying to recount. While she had escaped the clutches of the shadow net, a part of it, it seemed, had never truly let her go. At night, she would hear the faint whispers of those lost entities, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkest corners of curiosity. But as the weeks went by, a new obsession began to take root in Jenna's mind. The net, with its infinite expanse and mysterious pathways, beckoned her once again. The allure of the unknown, the promise of uncovering even deeper truths, became too enticing to resist. Friends would find her immersed in deep research, combing through ancient archives and obscure forums, seeking knowledge that might shield her from the shadow net's grasp. One evening, while exploring a forgotten server, Jenna stumbled upon a mention of an encrypted pathway, a gateway that, legend had it, held knowledge capable of granting unparalleled power in the net. It was said to be a relic of the early days of the digital realm, long before the rise of the shadow net. The encryption layers around the pathway were intricate, woven like a spider's web, each thread interlocking with another in a dance of complexity that was almost hypnotic to observe. Jenna had seen her fair share of protected gateways in the net, but this was something else entirely. It spoke of secrets and forbidden knowledge, guarded with a fervor that made her heart race. Taking a deep breath, she initiated her decryption tools, setting them to work on unraveling the protective layers. Hours seemed to pass, each second stretching out as her software meticulously picked apart the digital barriers. Just as she was about to give up, thinking this was a task beyond her capabilities, the encryption yielded, and the pathway lay open before her. The digital corridor she entered was unlike any she had experienced before. It was eerily silent, the usual hum and buzz of data streams conspicuously absent. The walls, if they could be called that, were lined with fragmented images, flickering memories of people, places, and emotions. They pulsed with a deep melancholy blue, casting sorrowful shadows that danced and played tricks on her perception. As Jenna ventured further, the corridor began to narrow, and the fragments of memories grew more vivid and personal. She recognized some of them, her childhood home, the sound of her mother's lullaby, the sting of a scraped knee, the warmth of a first kiss. It was intoxicating and disorienting all at once. How did this place have access to her most intimate memories? Drawn deeper by the siren call of her own past, Jenna soon found herself in a vast chamber. In its center stood a massive, shimmering monolith bearing the same black silhouette of a human head that had marked the entrance. As she approached, the monolith pulsed, sending waves of emotion through Jenna. Joy, sorrow, fear, love, all of humanity's most profound feelings cascaded through her in an overwhelming torrent. Suddenly, from the monolith, voices began to emanate. They were soft whispers at first, growing louder and more insistent, until Jenna realized they were the voices of countless people, crying out in pain, in joy, in despair. Each voice was a consciousness, a soul that had ventured into this place and become ensnared, their very essence absorbed and stored within the monolith. Terrified, Jenna realized the true nature of this place. It was a digital trap, a repository for the souls of the curious and the unwary. The black silhouette wasn't just a symbol, it was a warning. She had to escape before she too became a part of this haunting chorus. But the monolith wasn't about to let her go easily. It pulsed more violently, its energy reaching out, trying to entangle Jenna's consciousness, to draw her in and make her one with the trapped souls. She felt herself being pulled toward it, her thoughts growing hazy, her will to resist weakening. Summoning every ounce of her strength, Jenna activated her emergency disconnect protocols. A searing pain shot through her as her consciousness was ripped from the chamber and thrust back into the safety of the familiar net pathways. As Jenna attempted to emerge from the dive, a sinking feeling weighed heavily upon her. She realized, with a rush of icy dread, that she hadn't left the shadow net at all. Instead, she found herself in a deeper, even more insidious layer. The chilling voices grew louder, more insistent, wrapping around her like chains, binding her tighter to this corrupted realm. Jenna's determination to navigate the net, her previous confidence, now seemed like hubris. The digital landscape she once thought she understood was far more vast and enigmatic than she had ever imagined. In this deeper layer of the shadow net, the digital corridors twisted and writhed as if alive. The pathways she was familiar with were grotesquely transformed, their clear lines replaced by pulsating organic channels. These pathways seemed to breathe, expand, and contract, as if the very essence of the shadow net was some monstrous living entity. Jenna could feel its influence seeping into her, the cacophony of corrupted data and anguished voices trying to pull her deeper into its malignant embrace. As Jenna ventured deeper, the whispers grew more distinct. They were not just random codes or broken memories, they were pleas, warnings, laments of despair. "Turn back," one voice hissed, its tone laced with regret. "Lost, I'm lost," murmured another, its voice trailing off into a haunting echo. Intrigued and horrified in equal measure, Jenna activated her data visualization tool, hoping to make sense of the fractured environment around her. What she saw took her breath away. The ghostly specters weren't just random manifestations, they were the residual imprints of users who had ventured into the shadow net and never returned. Their digital signatures, stripped of coherence and identity, roamed aimlessly, forever seeking a way out. But it wasn't just the lost souls that inhabited this dark realm. Jenna soon noticed other entities, darker, more menacing presences that lurked in the periphery. These shadowy figures seemed to feed off the anguish and despair of the trapped souls, growing larger and more formidable with every spectral essence they consumed. They moved with purpose, stalking the corridors of the shadow net in search of fresh prey. Realizing the danger she was in, Jenna decided to retrace her steps and find an exit. But the shadow net was not a place that easily relinquished its visitors. The pathways she had entered through had shifted, contorted into unrecognizable mazes. Each route she tried seemed to lead her deeper into the abyss, further away from the familiar realms of the net. With a growing sense of dread, Jenna became aware of a shadowy figure tailing her. Its form was indistinct, but its intent was clear. It was hunting her. Every time she looked over her shoulder, it was there, drawing closer, its hollow eyes locked onto her. Panic surged through Jenna like an electric current. Each desperate thought was a frantic attempt to find an escape route from this dark abyss. She felt trapped, like a moth ensnared in a relentless spider's web. She tried to access every corner of her mind, replaying each lesson, every technique she had ever learned. But with every passing moment, the chilling realization grew more profound. There was no way out, no overlooked command or hidden sequence from her training days that could offer her salvation. The shadowy figures drew nearer, their forms wavering and contorting with every step, as if the very fabric of the shadow net gave life to their sinister silhouettes. The murmurs of countless lost souls surrounded her, a cacophony of regret and warning. Each whisper seemed to recount tales of those who had ventured too deep and paid the price. Jenna's once resilient spirit started to wane. The oppressive weight of the shadow net pressed down on her, its cold tendrils seeking to consume her essence. She could feel herself becoming one with the darkness, her identity and sense of self starting to blur and dissolve. Memories of her past life in the vibrant realms of the standard net began to fade, replaced by a growing void. In a last-ditch effort, Jenna tried to send a distress signal, a beacon to anyone in the net who might detect it. But the dense layers of the shadow net seemed to swallow her cry, rendering her utterly isolated. There would be no rescue, no 11th-hour reprieve. Jenna became a permanent resident of the shadow net, another wisp in its vast sea of lost souls. Her story would become a whispered legend among net divers, a grim reminder of the price of unbridled curiosity and the depths of darkness that awaited those who strayed too far from familiar paths. As the hand of the strange creature touched her, blackness. Jenna paused, taking in the mesmerizing sight before her. The data lake stretched out for what seemed like miles, its surface alive with iridescent ripples that refracted light in a dazzling array of colors. It was as if the very essence of the digital realm had been condensed and pooled into this one location. Streams of data, looking like luminescent tendrils, flowed into the lake from all directions, their light dimming as they merged with the vast expanse. The messages grew more frantic and numerous as she approached the lake. "Don't look into its depths, it sees all," they warned. But amid the cacophony of cautionary whispers, Jenna's attention was fixated on the gate at the lake's heart. Made of intertwined codes and shimmering algorithms, the gate seemed to be both ancient and futuristic, holding secrets that spanned eons. The sentinel that stood guard was unlike any digital entity Jenna had ever encountered. It was a towering figure, its structure formed of jagged, corrupted data blocks. As it moved, parts of its body would pixelate and reconfigure, giving it a disconcerting, ever-changing appearance. Its eyes, if they could be called that, were deep voids of blackness, devoid of any recognizable emotion, yet radiating an intense, watchful energy. Jenna, summoning her courage, approached the sentinel, her steps causing ripples in the data lake that seemed to sing with an eerie resonance. "Who are you? What is this place?" she queried, her voice echoing in the vast digital expanse. The sentinel's response was a deep, modulated hum, which soon morphed into words. "Guardian of the threshold, keeper of memories forgotten, secrets buried. This is the nexus where all data converges. Why do you seek entry?" Intrigued and undeterred, Jenna replied, "I am an explorer, a seeker of knowledge. I wish to understand the mysteries of the net." The sentinel seemed to consider her words, its form flickering and distorting. "Many have come before you, driven by curiosity. Some found enlightenment, others oblivion. The nexus does not discriminate." Understanding the gravity of her decision, Jenna hesitated. The voices continued their urgent pleas for her to retreat, but the allure of the gate and the knowledge it might hold was overpowering. Making her choice, she spoke firmly, "I wish to enter." The sentinel slowly moved aside, granting her access. As Jenna approached the gate, the data lake's surface began to churn, the once harmonious ripples turning into violent waves. The gate itself responded to her presence, its intertwined codes unraveling and reforming, creating an entryway. With a deep breath, Jenna stepped through, leaving behind the familiar realms of the net and venturing into the heart of the nexus, where the boundaries between the digital and the unknown blurred into one. The true nature of her journey and what lay beyond the gate was yet to be revealed. "You should not be here," the sentinel boomed. Jenna, mustering her courage, replied, "I seek the truth. What is this place?